everybody, and welcome to a brand new spoiler review episode for episode 4 of The Last of Us from the
Geek
Buddies!
Hey! Well, we're decidedly in a happier mood after last week's episode, so clearly it wasn't quite as emotionally draining this week's episode, but there was a lot that happened here for sure. A little more furthering of the relationship between Joel and Ellie, an introduction of a new group of people called the Hunters there in Kansas City, and a introduction at the end, a cameo of two characters from the game, but also a new form of a infected type of thing hiding underneath the surface, underneath the ground there, that we're going to see if you watch the preview for next week's episode. So a lot happened in this week's episode for sure. New storylines. It felt a little Walking Dead-ish for me that we, a new group of people who are camped out of this town and, you have to deal with them. So, but we'll talk about all of that as we break it all down here. Let's introduce ourselves. I am the outlaw John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the Geek Buddies.
I am Michael Vogel, writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm an animation writer and a television actor where you're going to get to see me on the season premiere of Party Down later this month on Starz.
Finally! I feel like you've been talking about this for quite some time, so I'm going to be excited.
I shot it a long time ago.
To be fair.
I mean, it's about a year ago.
Yeah, and this is the first episode since the triumphant debut of Pedro Pascal on SNL. What a fantastic episode, in my opinion, over the weekend. A lot of funny moments, a lot of funny stuff for sure. But he is back into the frozen wastelands of Canada to shoot this episode. Please Hold to My Hand, directed by Jeremy Webb. This one, still, from what I see in the credits here on IMDb, NEIL DRUCKMANN and Craig Mazin handling the writing on this one. Maybe there's another writer that was involved for this episode particularly, but that's what I see here on IMDb. Mike, I turn to you first. Always with these things, what's your overall feeling for episode 4 here of The Last of Us?
Well, I mean, look, obviously after you have an episode that a lot of people think is one of the best hours of television they've ever seen, you're destined to have a lot to live up to. And I don't think this necessarily reaches those heights. But where I'll disagree with you a little bit is that I think that even though this gets back to the main storyline, which inevitably is going to be Joel and Ellie dealing with humans as they fight zombies, because that's what the game is. This is where you see how really great acting, really great writing, and really great character work can elevate even a story that sort of gets back to its basic tropes. I think there was a lot of amazing stuff in this episode. This didn't feel like a filler episode to get us to the next big thing. This felt like an episode where they really doubled down on this relationship between Joel and Ellie, and I think in ways that they stuck true to the game, it was great, and in ways that they went off and did different things. I mean, they continue to show that they seem to have this really, really amazing ability to know when to go almost line for line from the game and when to deviate. And with the entire group that they meet and everything that happens, they deviate pretty significantly and I think really successfully. So I think there's a lot of really, really amazing stuff in here. So even though it's not episode 3 of The Last of Us, it continues to be absolutely great. And I feel like if the first 3 episodes kind of set up some of the major themes, some of the major things that were going on, we're really now getting into the meat of the story here, which is both fun and thrilling and also nerve-wracking. Especially with this episode, they're making us fall in love with these characters so that they can gut us down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Shannon, your overall thoughts on this episode? As Michael mentioned, some deviations from the game. Certainly Kathleen is a new character. Perry is a new character. So, but the Hunters are in the game. And and I'm sure both of you saw the post episode little mini doc, and NEIL DRUCKMANN talked about it. Craig Mazin talked about how if they wanted to expand more, they wanted to give the Hunters a face. They wanted to give them purposes, goals, things that they were doing, so they would have a 3-dimensional appearance here in the episode. So, what did you think overall of this episode as we come out of episode 3?
I mean, where we are right now in TV, I mean, this continues to be one of the better shows. I mean,
Mhm.
it's just so, so captivating. And a lot of that has to do with the performances of Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey. I mean, just strengthening that bond. Like you
Yeah.
see how we ended episode 3, that he said, okay, I'm going to do this. You have to follow these rules. Like, here is what we have to do. You have to do this. And we see, even though she does, for the most part,
Of course.
we still see that, Ellie's a kid, and she's going to do things that kids do. I love again, having not really played the game, the idea that they have to stop every hour or so to
Right.
siphon gas out of a car because gas breaks down over time. I'm like, oh yeah, that's great video game logic. Like, you have to stop, like, oh, we have to stop and get gas here, but we have to do this and we have to do this. I thought that was a lot of fun, and the introduction of Melanie Linsky, who is just a tremendous, tremendous performer. As far as giving the hunters kind of a little bit more of an identity, I think that's the thing that you have to do when you're adapting a something that is completely focused on two characters, and everything, you just kind of view everything as obstacles.
Yeah.
Giving them a story, humanizing them, makes them an interesting antagonist. I mean, when it's just, black hat, white hat, it can get it can get tired.
Yeah.
And even though they are firmly placed in the antagonist camp, um, going through and seeing, the how they were put in this situation. It's really, really fascinating because,
Mhm.
again, we don't know, at least in the show, we don't know a ton about Fedra. We know a lot of people don't like him.
Right.
And you see that these people rebelled and were successful. And as most revolutions that have occurred in the past, what you have to do to beat off the bad guy is kind of become the bad guy.
Right.
And I thought it was really, really well done.
Yeah, Sean Connery says in Untouchables, I've become what I've beheld and I'm content that I've done so. That kind of thing of blurring the lines between being hero and villain, depending on your perspective, for sure. I agree. I mean, the furthering of the relationship with Joel and Ellie is really great. I think of the moment here where she's trying to tell him the Shannon jokes, and he is just like, no. That's the reflexive reaction, because my heart is closed, my walls are up, I cannot connect with a young teenage girl that will remind me of my own daughter. I'm not ready to open that door yet. But by the end, he's laughing at the joke there, and there's more of a thawing out between them that's developing naturally throughout this episode. And of course, she kills someone, or she almost kills someone in front of him. That causes a bonding moment about how to hold the gun and those kinds of things. So there's a lot more developing between Joel and Ellie. And as Neil Druckmann says, I think it was Druckmann or Craig Mazin who says, well, it's because Ellie is essentially Joel. And so it's really interesting to see that kind of forming as you're watching this episode and watching these episodes and this relationship and storyline throughout. And also, right, the hunter situation, like when you're playing a video game, you kill people that attack you, but then you move on to the next thing. There are people connected to the people you attacked and killed, or who you killed or fought off and killed. It's nice to see that there's repercussions to that in a 3-world or real world type approach to an adaptation here that I thought worked really well as well. But let's jump into this thing here. Let's jump into the first section. We're going to go old school with this. We're going to separate this into just 2 sections instead of talking storylines. So just strap in and let me get going here. We open with Ellie getting familiar with her gun in an abandoned gas station. Joel is siphoning out gas. As Shannon said, we hear him explain what he has to do every hour to make sure, because they used to drive 10, 12 hours, but now they can't quite do that anymore. So while Ellie is waiting, she pulls out Will Livingston's terrible joke book. I call that a Shannon McClung special. She is still a teenager amidst the madness. That's what we're seeing here, where she's telling these jokes that kind of alleviate the situation. Joel talks about trucks, tanks, and choppers. She finds a tape when they get back in the truck they're driving. She finds a cassette tape to put it in. It's Hank Williams, and Alone and Forsaken is a song that he's singing. One of those kind of unrecognized classic songs from Hank Williams for sure. Ellie finds a gay magazine, and we get the stuff from I hope I'm saying that. We get the stuff from the stuck pages, which was in the game. So interesting way to work that kind of in the next episode. So fascinating how they did that. They drive for a while looking at the countryside on their way to Wyoming to try to find Joel's brother Tommy. They pull over, camp for the night. They eat some Chef Boyardee. And Joel lays a little bit of the foreshadowing for what we're going to be getting in the second half of the episode, talking about how he's afraid of, he's looking out for people out in the woods, because it's not the fungus you need to worry about out here. It's the people. She tells him a new joke. Doesn't quite work 100%. But the next morning he's packing things up. She wakes up. She doesn't seem like a morning person. They talk about coffee and Starbucks. They're driving around. She lists the cities. And then she asks Joel about Tommy. And Joel goes in about Tommy, talking about his history, the Army, Desert Storm, Tess, the Fireflies, Marlene, and how Tommy is the kind of guy who has the heroic complex where he wants to save the world. And we hear that Tommy did quit the Fireflies eventually, even though Marlene had talked him into being a part of it. Then Ellie questions Joel about why he's doing it, and he says he's about staying in the world, staying alive, and he says he's doing it for family. They drive up to what we find out later is a ratted out Kansas City. The tunnel is blocked by a semi. They go around through the city. We see an underworld. We see an Underworld and Matchstick Men marquee, which is interesting. Like, is that the time when this is happening? I'm just in my head. I'm trying to put that in my head. Joel drives into an alley, suspects a trap. He's right. They are attacked by two people initially. He crashes into a store. Joel holds them off so Ellie can climb into a hole and escape. Joel kills them both, but a third subdues him. Ellie takes her gun out, climbs back through the wall, shoots the kid in the back, essentially paralyzing him. And the kid's name is Brian. He tries to talk his way out of it. And Joel kills Brian as he calls for his mom. And I put in here, they all cry for their mom after they've been badasses. All right, so overall thoughts here, Mikey, on this intro, seeing Joel and Ellie, as we mentioned, getting closer, getting tighter, her kind of making these jokes, playing, just being a normal teenager in the world, but also cutting to what happens in Kansas City, being a normal teenager in some moments, and in other moments, really not a normal teenager, essentially shooting somebody in the back who is going to kill your mentor, for lack of a better term at this point, or protector.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, this is the first time, episode 2, episode 1, by the time Joel meets Ellie, you're pretty much at the end of the episode. They barely spend a ton of time together before they get out of the QZ. In episode 2, Tess is the one that really sort of is the buffer between the two of them.
Yes.
I mean, she's the one that's sort of keeping the conversation going with Ellie. Joel would be just as happy to not say a damn thing to her. And in fact is every time she tries to get him to talk about anything, he's like, pass. And then we take this lovely kind of a detour in episode 3 into the Bill and Frank story. And so we get a little bit of Ellie and Joel, but still, I mean, he finds out that Bill and Frank are gone. The note brings up the Tess thing. So he kind of lays out those rules. So this is the first time that it's really just the two of them on the road. There's no buffer between them at all. And you just see Ellie sort of chip away at Joel. But the other thing that I think they do that's really interesting in this episode is that although we saw Joel's backstory and know a little bit about him in episode 1, as far as Ellie knows, and as far as they've played him for most of the of 2 and what we see of him in 3, he's just getting the job done. He's a badass. Everyone's scared of him. Right. He's the guy that gets shit done, and that's all you know. And right off the bat here with him siphoning the gas and her asking him how it works, and he's like, to grab it. Look, I don't know how siphoning gas works.
Neither do I.
None of us know. We just kind of know that that's what you do. And so you see he gets the job done. He's not the smartest guy. And then a little bit later, when she kind of points out later on in the episode that she realized he can't hear so good out of one ear. So you're starting to humanize Joel as his defenses are coming down at the same time. So he's becoming more of this well-rounded human. He's just a guy. He's a really proficient guy, but he is just a guy. And so just seeing them on the road together, that damn pun book, I am with you. Ellie started reading those things, and I was like, well, goddamn, Shannon McClung is going to have a lot to say about this bullshit. But what a perfect kid thing. Every single one of us, whether you are a parent, whether you have nieces or nephews, whether your friends have kids, whether you're just around kids in any capacity, they love really stupid jokes. And sometimes when they think it's funny, and I include Shannon in this, when you see them laughing at their own joke, it's sometimes funnier than the joke itself.
That's true. Very true.
So it's just, all of these dynamics are just really, really sweet. And you do see Joel, even though he said, let's not talk about our lives, they're in that car, starts talking about his brother. There's nothing else to do. What are you going to do? So eventually these things kind of come up. A lot of the stuff in the car, the Hank Williams tape, the porn magazine. I don't know if we'll call it a gay magazine. It was a porn magazine.
I meant to say gay porn magazine. I apologize.
But also straight out of the game. So, you know,
Yes.
when the Bill and Frank episode happened and things happened really differently, a lot of people were really sad online that you weren't going to get that moment because it's a really funny moment from the game. And I'm glad that we got to get that moment in there. I also just really love the entire detour of them going off the road and camping for the night, because that's something that doesn't happen in the game, because God knows who wants to watch a cutscene for like 20 minutes of them camping in the woods. So it was just a really, really nice opportunity to sort of lay out the world a little bit more, you know, to lay out this idea that, like, you know, even the way he talks to her is a different. Like, when she's like, should we start a fire? And he's like, well, now why am I going to tell you that's stupid? And that's more, it's gruff, but it's a little bit more of a teaching moment.
Yeah.
And everything with them waking up with the coffee and all of it, like, it was all just really, really, I don't want to say sweet in a schmaltzy way. It was just very real and cute, and you just like them together. Like, watching them bounce off of each other. And again, it's just really great writing combined with really, really great acting. And then getting into the city, you know, this, again, I love seeing how video game storytelling translates to television. And you're driving along, you hit a giant obstacle, you can't get around it, you gotta go around the obstacle. And then everything that happens when they see the guy who's asking for help in the crash, like, again, that's taken right out of the game, but it's done so well. It all happens so fast, you're kind of thrown off. And then everything that happens with those guys coming in and him telling her to get into that hole and wait, her coming out and shooting the guy, and then Joel telling her to go inside so she doesn't have to see it. You're just seeing this entire you're seeing that Joel is seeing Ellie differently. I mean, she got him out of the gym. In some ways, she is very much like Joel. And as they get to know each other, Joel learns that. But in other ways, she's kind of like his new Tess. Like, she has his back. Like, he was fucked. And she has his back. So I think that all of this front half of the episode just kind of makes you really fall in love, not with Joel or Ellie, but with Joel and Ellie as a unit, because this is the first time we've really gotten to see it. And as both of them sort of chip away at each other, you're just like, oh God, I've got a bad feeling about this. I got a bad feeling about all of this.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. The performance here from Pedro Pascal in these moments when he's like trying to resist what Ellie is doing. He knows what Ellie is doing, and he is doing his best, but he is softer than you think he is inside, and it's because of the relationship he had with his daughter, and that he still misses that. He still pines for that. Certainly, still haunted by that. So he keeps people at bay. But she, just like Michael, you said, and of course Druckmann and MAZIN said, she is like Joel. There's that exchange in the truck where she says, well, he says, she said, how do you think you're going to find, what if you don't find Tommy? He goes, oh, I'm going to find him. How do you know you're going to find him? I'm persistent. And then we see Ellie do the same thing to Joel and asking him questions about Tommy. We have a 24-hour car ride. The story can't be that long. So bang, 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 give me my information. So just kind of both her mirroring him slowly but surely. And as you said, kind of he's teaching her in certain moments, almost reflexively about how to take care of herself, about things to watch out for, because he's been a dad. It's just in his nature. Once he's been a dad, it's in his nature to have that stuff triggered. And it's great to see that as this relationship blossoms, for sure. And also him saying to her that she's cargo, how that changes by the time we get to the end of the episode. So Shannon, what did you think about this opening stuff here that we got between Joel and Ellie? Some of the exchanges in the car, and also when we get to Kansas City, that whole action sequence there with those three guys.
I mean, I thought it's just really, really good character building, and it's that that three-legged attack of acting, writing, and directing. Like they're just framing everything really well. Because again, in the hands of, I don't want to say lesser filmmakers, but in the hands of different storytellers, this is the type of sequence that can be excruciating. And be like, come on, let's just get going.
Yeah, or cheesy, or kind of shoved in.
Sure, but like making exposition interesting, vital exposition, you have to get these things across to the audience so you understand what's going on. But to make it to build character at the same time, it's not the easiest thing to do. And the fact that they're anchored with these great performances. You're getting across, pertinent information, as well as becoming attached to these two as a duo. it's just really, really, really good work. I mean, that whole thing when he's like, and my brother, that's a long story.
Right.
And hers like, we have 25 hours. Like, I don't know what else we're doing. And as they do go and camp, there is a Whole Foods across the street from my apartment. Whenever I see someone on a camp stove with ravioli, I'm like, ooh, some Chef Boyardee. That sounds really good
come
right
on,
now.
that still works. That still works.
Even if it's 20 years old, I'm like, oh boy, I really want to go to the normal grocery store and not the Whole Foods and just get some Chef Boyardee. Right
It really is true. Like those shitty little meatballs in that Chef Boyardee, like you could just taste them. And they don't taste like meatball. Like they're gross, but I like them.
Yeah.
It's meat product.
Yeah. You can take your ramen and stick it. I'll take Boyardee every day, man. Yeah.
But then again, hearkening to the game, which is just sort of like my basic knowledge of games, when they get up and they see that semi truck has blocked the road by that overpass, and how Pedro Pascal looks underneath and it is completely clear, like a video game. It's like, oh, it's the video game creators showing you, like, look how easy it would be if you could just get past this, but you can't. Right. And knowing that they're going into the city, that's where the infected probably are. That's where more people are. Like, they're going into the lion's den. Yeah. And the happenstance nature of, as they're driving in, that someone with a blood mark, like, oh, please help, who's completely by themselves. Like, okay, 100% a trap. Yeah. And Ellie, as someone who's out, doesn't know this. Joel immediately knows it. Yeah. And the fact that as they're driving, that whoever's posted up top, because again, I watch it with the subtitles because I don't want to miss anything, that you can see as he nails the gas, you see the guy, the I don't know if it was Brian or the dad, just say, go. Like, this is something that they have practiced for. And he drops a freaking cinder block on the windshield. And like, you see that they've got, those boards with the nails sticking out. And something that I like, because as being an action fan, generally I want to be in the nitty gritty. Like, I want to see everything that happens. With this, it's a little different. I mean, the fact that we do stay on Ellie for a lot of it, that you see the concern on her face, the concern not just for her, kind of self-preservation, but her concern for this guy who she's starting to bond with, and not really bonded with a lot of people in her life. At least that's what we're kind of guessing. That's what makes those moments so, edge of your seat. And like, as Joel is sort of just, firing, and like, we can't really see what he's shooting at. Yeah. Again, that reminds me of the video game, or reminds me of video games in general, that these people, these are just sort of like these, faceless specters. And then when you are then finally confronted, like, I'm pretty sure Ellie shot that kid like in the spine. Like,
no, because when he was to his legs.
Yeah, when he's saying, I can't feel my legs. At first I thought she was aiming for his ass. And I'm like, well, that'll do it. But at the moment that he is it's almost like those 80s from professional wrestling, those 80s bad guys who immediately, when they are, getting overpowered, like, no, let's be friends. But in a far more tragic sense, because this guy doesn't want to die. Right. Like, he was doing the thing that he was probably taught to do. And now that he's being confronted with his own mortality, and he thinks that he's got a chance talking to this kid, whereas the guy who he just tried to kill is kind of looming above him. And as he's calling for his mom, I mean, even though, like, yes, he's positioned as a bad guy for us because our heroes are Joel and Ellie. But hearing a child, I mean, again, like a teen, probably 19 or 20, hearing someone call for their mom, like, it is the most heartbreaking thing. Even though, like, yes, this is a bad guy, but it just humanizes him in that way. Even though if he had the opportunity, he would totally shoot Joel again.
He was killing Joel.
Oh, what? 100%. Yeah. But yeah, again, just really, really well done.
Yeah, I loved that sequence in there, because you're right. It's a great point, Shan. I hadn't thought of it, how they keep these people at a distance to make it feel like the video game. Like, even when he kills the one guy, you just see him from a distance go, oh, and just goes down. And the other dude runs up because, you motherfucker, all of that. But then when Joel kills the second guy, it is from Ellie's point of view inside the room. Mm-hmm. We don't see him actually kill the other guy. And it isn't until Joel gets surprised by the other person, which Joel, of course, beats himself up about afterwards, that we see her kind of walk out and do what she did. And yes, showing the fact that this is a young kid who's probably had to do these kinds of things to survive. And we're about to hear Joel admit the stuff that not admit, but allude to some of the stuff he might have done that was similar to what these guys did, which is why he knew it was a trap. That just speaks volumes about who you're supposed to be thinking is the hero or the villain or the antagonist. It's all about your perspective, because I'm sure that young kid was trained to do that so that they wouldn't get killed or wouldn't get taken or whatever. And so, and you can even extrapolate that out to young kids who are born into war. They're conditioned to believe certain things or indoctrinated to believe these things. And so they're sent out to fight for and defend territory or defend a group of people in order to, because they believe that's the way to preserve their way of life.
It's what they're doing to survive.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah. All right. Let's take a quick break. We'll jump into the second half of this episode right after this.
Do 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 do.
I didn't catch that one. What is that?
You want to hold my hand?
Oh, good. Very good. Very good. All right, we cut to real abruptly after this scene with the young kid dying, calling for his mom, which is really heartbreaking. We see Kathleen. We meet Kathleen, Melanie Lynskeey here, grilling an old man about people she needs to know the whereabouts of. Someone named Henry and some other people that she named off, which are probably, I don't know, maybe those are names from the game. I don't know. She is in essence in charge of the hunters. They don't say they're the hunters, I don't think. I just got that in the post-episode doc. This is her group. And Kathleen talks about her brother being beaten to death and that this old man had something to do with it. And she calls him out for ratting out his neighbors to Fedra. And his defense is, I delivered you. So we find out that this is, in essence, the town doctor or a doctor that she knew. She was delivered by this doctor, and her brother was delivered by this doctor. This only makes her pause for just a little bit, but she wants to know where Henry is. This Henry is because he is the one who's responsible for her brother's death. He says, they made me do it. They put a gun to my head. She pulls out a gun and puts it to this guy's head and says, have I met the requirements to get the information from you? And before she's about to kill him, we hear this horn honking. She runs out, and we see the people who Joel and Ellie, or Joel really, have killed here, lined up, including the young Brian kid. And then we see Perry there, who is essentially her right-hand man, the guy with a long beard. For those you don't know, that is Jeffrey Pierce. He is from the game. He voiced Tommy in the game. So great to see him in a live-action role here, a new character as well. Both Kathleen and Perry are new, and he said that he is part of the military in the post-episode doc. But Kathleen thinks Henry might have sent these people, that they might be mercenaries, and she walks back in after she asks if a doctor can help. The guys tell her, no, these guys are all going to die or they're dead already. Walks back in, and she shoots the doctor. We don't see the doctor die. We just see her shoot from outside the door. And then she tells her people to find every collaborator and kill them all. And then we see them kicking in doors, knocking down places. And then we cut to Joel, who's trying to talk to Ellie about killing people and its effect on you. He's trying to essentially kind of walk her through the feelings of it all. He's terrible at it, but she reveals that it wasn't her first time, which I kind of suspected when she killed the infected guy. And he shows her how to hold a weapon and where to store it. We hear about Fedra, how the Fedra, they were taught to hold weapons and use weapons in Fedra, and he is teaching her a better way to hold the gun. Perry walks up and leads her to an attic, saying he found something. We go inside, we see these Superman drawings, these food cans, and she alludes to the fact that it's Sam up here, Henry's younger brother, and that they can't be far away because Henry wouldn't leave Sam behind. Then Perry leads her to another area, and we see this cracked, massive divots in the floor, and it starts to move around. I lost my shit at this moment. I was like, what the hell is this now? And that is, for those of you who play the game, that is a bloater that is under there. I can see that in next episode. Then Joel and Ellie are breaking into an apartment complex, setting up the stairs. Ellie asks Joel about ambushes. He explains he's been on both sides of this, so he understood how to get out of that situation. And then she asks him point blank, have you killed innocent people? And he doesn't answer. and says, we got to get upstairs. We got to get to where we're going. They get to a place to sleep. He puts the glass down on the ground so he can hear people coming. He asks Ellie about it not being her first time killing people. She doesn't want to talk about it, kind of like Joel didn't want to talk about things on the stairs. Joel understands and says it isn't fair because she's young, which made me think of the last episode of The Bad Batch when Hunter was saying that about Omega and young Guji there. She calls him out for his lack of hearing on his right side. She tells him one last dad joke, which actually breaks him and makes him laugh. And then we go to black, and then we come back up, and Ellie wakes up. Joel and Henry and Sam are upon them, and we go to black. Shannon, a lot of stuff going on here. We get the instruction of the hunters. We get Kathleen and Perry. We get this Henry person. We hear about Sam. We got a bloater underground sighting, at least. And then we get a little more of the Joel and Ellie relationship and her starting to ask him deeper questions about what his role has been in all of this. And then Henry and Sam are upon them by the end. So what are your thoughts about all of this as we go to the second half of the episode?
I mean, one, I love that they're using performers from the game in the show. I think that is the coolest thing. And like, I don't know how long Jeffrey Pierce is going to be in the show, probably next episode, and they'll probably move on. That's my guess. But the fact that he was given a fairly significant role, it's just awesome. I mean, like, you know, Nolan North had a very slight cameo in the Uncharted movie, which the Uncharted movie, not my favorite. And also, they didn't give him, the part was kind of dumb. It was just like, you wish they would have given him a better role. So just that, I realize that has nothing to do with the actual show, but I love that. I would have to assume this is NEIL DRUCKMANN being like, let's be good to our people who were part of the success of this thing. Like, they're part of the reason that it became what it became. Again, MELANIE LYNSKEY, who again is just such a captivating performer with Togetherness on HBO, with Yellow Jackets. I mean, you see who this woman may have been at one point and how she has evolved again to survive. And, you know, I don't know, I've never been to Kansas, so I can't say the scope of that city. But knowing that Fedra is it's all over. Like, again, that was something that I thought was maybe just in Boston, but it's like, okay, the world is trying to come back together, but perhaps the people that are in charge of this you know, government aren't like the best people. I love the great line of dialogue. Like, you know, have I, you know, satisfied the conditions to make you talk? Like, that's just a great line. And then when the doctor says back to her, like, okay, this has to stop. And her response is just like, oh, now because you're in here, now it has to stop. Like,
that was a tough moment for me, because I was like, that's how I would respond. And I wonder if I have to take a look at myself about something like that. So I love that back and forth.
Well, and again, I mean, the moment that she finds out that Brian and his dad, I think, have been killed, and they thought, okay, Henry has called Fedra, you know, they're bringing these guys in. It really reframes the hunters. It's like, again, they are definitely the antagonists in this situation, but it's like, oh, okay, we worked really hard to sort of overthrow this terrible group of people. They're sending in reinforcements. Like, we have to hunker down. Like, we have to take care of our own. I mean, again, it you know, presents these really interesting moral issues of, like, you know, I'm protecting my people. Everyone who's not us is an enemy. So it's just it just makes for very, very captivating storytelling. The moment that you see that, you know, that kind of like the beginnings of a sinkhole and that something's underneath it. I'm with you, John. That was kind of like, oh God, what's going to happen here? But also you see her as a leader who's a little flawed as well. Like, she doesn't want to tell anybody about this. Cause again, as an audience member who doesn't know the game, I'm like, I don't know what's under there. But she does not feel compelled to share that with her people. It's like, well, let's take care of what we have to take care of for right now. I thought it was interesting because, again, not having any context to who she's talking about, this Henry guy that you go in and you see these crayon drawings. It's like, okay, there's another kid involved here, and the fact that she's like, we got to get him. I know he's close. Presenting a child into that situation adds another layer of like, okay, you're hunting a kid. Like, this is really, I don't know who to root for right now. I mean, I know we root for Joel and Ellie because they're the ones on the poster, but you're giving everyone a case for doing what they're doing. Watching how Ellie talks about she's noticed the thing with Joel's right ear.
Yeah.
And then when it cuts to, you see when he's asleep on his left side. So he can't hear. He couldn't hear Henry and Sam coming in. Again, that's just really good filmmaking. Maybe that's from the game. I don't know. But also the moment where she says, have you killed innocent people? There's a couple of things. Like, do I think that Joel cares what Ellie thinks of him? He's starting to. But also I think having to sort of confront the things you've done in your past to survive, it's very, very difficult to look in the mirror afterwards and having to talk about it, being like, yeah, I did do this. And knowing like he didn't want Ellie to have a gun at the beginning because he doesn't know this kid. I don't know what this kid's going to do. I don't know if this kid's responsible. Now he didn't want her to have a gun because he didn't want her to be put in the position that she'd have to take a life.
Yeah.
And it's just really, really, again, really compelling storytelling they're doing right now. And the fact that the one kid who's got a gun on Joel has a painted on superhero mask and he looks like he's about 9.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I'm very, very excited for next week.
The things you got to do to survive, for sure. Yeah, and the connective tissue, certainly Tess telling Joel in episode 2, I think, like, take Ellie, save her, maybe she can wash our sins of the things we did in the past. So certainly he's very well aware of the stuff he did and probably very ashamed of it as well. But you do what you got to do to survive. And certainly we see people from the outside of these situations sometimes go, how could you? And people defend themselves by saying you weren't there. So interesting conundrums being brought up here in this episode for sure. Mike, your thoughts on the back half of this episode? Stuff with Kathleen, with Perry, the Hunters, and Joel and Ellie, and Henry and Sam here.
Yeah, I'm usually the one that's a sympathetic one, but I think you guys are way more sympathetic towards Kathleen's moral quandary than I am.
I love it.
She's a bad guy. Yeah. She was a good guy once, but she's not a good guy anymore. So yeah, I mean, I think that we meet. So again, like, so to what you guys were saying, like in the game, the Hunter, it was just a group of people that were, they needed to get past. They were an obstacle that they needed to get past, and they were people that you didn't really know what they were. They were just in the game, and they weren't Fedra, and they weren't anyone else. They were just this group of people. And so they definitely gave them a bigger backstory than we had, that they overthrew Fedra. And, to Shannon's point, Fedra stands for, what is it? Federal Disaster Response Agency. They're a federal agency. It wasn't just like a group of people. Like, this is what the government has turned into. So they were everywhere. Even in last week's episode, when Frank shows up, I forget where he came from, whether it was Baltimore. He says where he came from, but
it was Baltimore.
It was Baltimore. That QZ zone had fallen. So, when they're talking about, that great line, episode 3, where Frank's like, you think the whole government's Nazis? And Bill's like, they are Nazis. He's like, well, they are now. Yeah, the government,
out of fear.
Yeah. So anyways, this whole idea that there was this group of people living in the QZ zone, just like Joel and Tess were, that they were like, fuck this, we've had enough. But the other thing that you get, and they do it so well because you have to, I went back and watched the back half of this episode twice because you're getting a massive amount of information that you actually don't have context for. Yeah. So once you get to the end of the episode, going back and rewatching it kind of helps you place some things. So Kathleen was the leader of this group that overthrew Fedra. Yeah. And there were clearly a group of people that were informants for Fedra, that were informing on what people were doing, whether the rebellion was starting, whatever was going on. Now, we don't really know, and Henry and Sam are from the game, but all of this backstory is not in the game because we didn't have any of it. So Henry's relationship to Kathleen, who's a brand new character, we don't know what that is. And more importantly, Henry's relationship to Kathleen's brother, who was killed, which is clearly an important thing for Kathleen. We don't know what that is. If I were going to guess, given what she is questioning her former doctor about, it seems that something that Henry did, she blames him for her brother getting killed. And she blames her doctor and all of these other people for informing on people, for helping Fedra. And as the doctor even says at one point, he's like, Fedra had a gun to my head. She clearly doesn't care. So what you're really seeing here is this group of people that they overthrew the bad Nazi government. That's good. But now they are going through and cleaning house, and anybody who they feel was loyal to Fedra, helped Fedra, whether that was under duress or not, they are out to get everybody, and they've basically become Fedra. I mean, they've basically become the Nazi regime that is going around and killing everybody. So my sympathy for her and her moral quandary as she is trying to do the right thing kind of goes out the window. And it really goes out the window when she sees the two bodies that Joel killed, because you guys are saying, oh, she thought this was Henry, she thought this. I don't know that she really thinks it's Henry, or if she does think it's Henry, it's really showing somebody's bias.
Because she immediately thinks it is. Yeah, right.
She creates this whole story. Yeah. You watch her do it, and if you go back and watch her, because she is an amazing actress, she sees these dead bodies, and the guy from the game, what's his name?
Yeah, Perry.
Perry. And Perry's like, it was a car that came in. It was well supplied. It's from outside of the city. None of this says this is the guy that's hiding away somewhere in the city with his little brother and their cans of corn and his superheroes drawings. Like, this is he's like, maybe they're mercs, maybe they're just passing through. And she goes, well, if Henry got a radio, maybe he radioed some mercs and they did this, so this is Henry's fault. That is a giant leap in logic to accuse your bad guy. And again, this is a thing that leaders do to maintain control. Like Henry, for whether it's warranted or not, and we will find out next week. My guess is no, but Henry has become the boogeyman. Henry has become, in her mind, this. He is the leader of this group of people that are out to still destroy us, and we need to kill him before he kills us. And this is how she is keeping control of this group of people. So she's turned Henry into this giant boogeyman. So I find the whole thing fascinating. I think Kathleen is a super interesting character. But my sympathy for her is much less than you gentlemen.
You make a good point. I think you won me over. She does say execute them all. She doesn't say bring them in for questioning. She doesn't say let's find out what they know. She says if you find anybody working with them, just kill them. Kill them all.
Yeah.
So fair point, Mike. Fair point.
So then, I mean, I think the scene with Joel and Ellie is great because you do see, I mean, Joel feels like absolute ass that he couldn't protect Ellie. This is the thing that Joel does. And again, like when you get into Joel's psychology, there's a big reason. Hey, I wasn't there to protect the kid that I'm watching over is pretty much his trauma point. So him not being able to help her and her having to shoot the guy to help him, I mean, he feels so bad about it, and he does just sort of try and muddle through this thing. And Ellie telling Joel that this wasn't her first time is a big admission on her part. And I don't know if it's like conscious or unconscious, but also I don't want to say it lets Joel off the hook, but it lets Joel know that she's not just this helpless. It puts them more on an equal field together. That allows him to look at her. And when you see that, he realizes that he's got this idea, just like his daughter. You're this kid, you've never seen violence, you've never dealt with anything, and I'm going to try and shield you from all of these things. That's my job. And then when he finds out that's not the case, he pretty quickly jumps to, all right, well, let me show you how to use this gun properly. And just, it's a great exchange. It's just everything between them is lovely. And then getting into back to the Kathleen of it all. Look, even if you don't know anything about the game and you don't know anything about these characters, the second that they find the hideout of this big bad guy who's trying to take everybody out, and it's empty vegetable cans and superhero drawings and crayon, it's pretty clear that this is not the mastermind who is trying to kill everybody. Like, this is not the Legion of Doom, okay? Like, this is like, you start to see really quickly that maybe this is not all that Kathleen is turning it out to be. And then on top of that, yeah, like you go see like this giant underground breathing concrete cracked thing, and she's like, why don't we take care of Henry first? You're like, okay.
Yeah.
I think
maybe
you've gone, Kathleen, you're a little bit off the reservation here. I think we need to take a big step back and talk about priorities.
I don't know. A lot of bad guys dabble in the arts. I don't know where you're coming from.
A little random thing that I thought was interesting. Going up like 33 floors in a giant high-rise building to hide out for the night. Not anything I would have ever thought to do in a post-apocalyptic world, but pretty smart.
Yeah.
Like, the chances of someone finding you in a long hallway of a hotel that has lots and lots of doors and there's lots of options is a lot different than I'm hiding out in this house and you just have to walk through the front door and find me camping out in the living room.
Right.
So I thought that was great. And again, all the details of him, like, putting down the glass, all the things, you're like, yeah, this all makes sense. And I'm taking notes for the impending apocalypse for when it happens so that I will be okay. And you know, Shannon had mentioned the right ear thing is actually not from the game. It's something that they actually said this in the post kind of behind the scenes thing on HBO, that they added this because in the game, or maybe they didn't mention it there and they mentioned it somewhere else, but it is an addition to the game to make Joel a little bit more human so that he's not just this perfect, awesome, badass killing machine and make him flawed. And I think that's a great choice.
Yeah.
Everything that happens in this episode pales in comparison to Joel getting the giggles. Joel getting the giggles is by a mile the best part of this episode. It is so real and so cute. And like, that's the thing, to let your main badass character be cute.
Yeah.
The way that Pedro Pascal is when he is giggling, he's like, that is so fucking stupid. It is this intensely sweet, adorable moment that I think solidifies the bond. That this is a moment where we've seen him through the episode. The walls are coming down a little bit. He's a little bit more sarcastic and snarky with her. He's revealing more about Tommy. He's kind of trying to talk to her about what it's like to take a life. He's showing her how to use the gun. It's all on the road. But him getting the giggles about the stupid diarrhea joke is the moment when he fully breaks, and the two of them giggling together is just perfection. It is just a perfect moment. And then to end the episode with what is clearly, whether you knew it or not, you can probably guess, is Henry and Sam, especially because we saw superhero pictures and you see a little kid with a superhero mask painted on his face and you're like, all right, I'm pretty sure I knew who drew those pictures. And again, if you know the game, you know kind of probably the broad strokes of where their story is going to go next week. But given all of this additional information about the Hunters and Kathleen and Henry's relationship to Kathleen's brother, which is all brand new, I have a feeling there's going to be a lot more deviations along the way towards where we probably end up. So I think they did just a really, really great job. And again, you know, we talk about this a lot because we cover a lot of these shows. We cover the Marvel shows, we cover the Star Wars shows, we cover all of these shows that are 6 episodes, 8 episodes, 10 episodes. And a lot of the times, especially in around episodes 2 to 4, we have always had this conversation where it comes on, we're like, yeah, this is good, but I'm ready to get moving. When are we gonna like this is all good information, but I'm ready to let's get to the thing we want to get to. Whether that is the attack on the Empire or the reveal of the superhero thing in the Marvel universe, like we find ourselves getting a little bit impatient. And this episode this series so far has absolutely none of that. Yeah. Their pacing is so on point, and there is so much richness in these characters and this relationship, this core relationship with Joel and Ellie and the world, that I feel like we're at episode 4 and I am like, oh God, I can't believe it's almost done. I wish there was more. 9's not enough. We need more. So I can't wait for next week. And yes, given the breathing concrete underneath the building that Kathleen seems to be unconcerned about, I think next week's going to be a banger.
No, she's concerned. She freaked out and was like, just bar everybody from this place, because she actually jumped when that thing moved around. So she knows what it could lead to. So
I'll give you a pandemic example. If I walk into my apartment complex and I see that 3 people have COVID And I go, oh shit, they got COVID. We'll deal with it later. Or, oh shit, they got COVID. Quarantine the building. It's two different reactions.
That's fair.
She's just worried about the crayon wielding maniac.
Yeah, clearly.
Exactly.
Clearly. Oh, poor distraught Kathleen who's struggling through her moral quandaries.
Yes. With the jagged cans of eating food there.
Who ate this corn?
This drawing has 4 colors. We know he's got 4 weapons.
I mean, yeah, the genius of the jokes, you could pinpoint those 3 scenes, right? In thirds, something in thirds, right? Initially, no, I don't want to play this game with you. You can go wait in the truck. Boom. He guesses what he knows what the answer is.
He knows the answer.
He says, you asshole, or you motherfucker, or whatever she says. And then the third one, she finally breaks him and they share a laugh, a bonding moment. So you see
that's a really, I had forgotten about that until you just mentioned it. Yeah, like that really you're smart. Right. That second beat where he beats her to the punchline. It's cute. It's a cute moment. This is, and even though they've known each other since episode 1, this episode is Joel and Ellie's meet cute. Like, this is the meet cute episode where, like, they finally are like, all right, I see you. I get it.
This is also why I do those jokes. I'm just trying to strengthen our friendship. You keep projecting my friendship bonds. But I'm still gonna try.
When she said diarrhea runs in the genes, I just my eyes rolled so far in the back of my head, and I was like, Shannon is somewhere right now being like, ha!
Well, Michael had his final words, I think, just there, Shannon. So do you have any final words on this episode as we glimpse episode 5 or episode 5? Have you said we need to say?
I mean, I agree with Vogel. Like, this show, not knowing where it's going to end up, I mean, this feels kind of perfectly paced to me. And this is not to say that this pace will work for every show, but for this show, the time that they're taking is not only enjoyable, but I imagine it's going to be very important for where they're going to end up.
Yeah, agreed. And it occurs to me with people's issues with Andor was some of the slowness or pacing. What if they had combined these episodes and lowered the episode amount? Would that have maybe adjusted people's thought processes? Who knows? But I am enjoying the pacing as well. I'm loving what we're getting here in the progression of the storylines and in the character work, the character beats, these things that are really important to establish characters that we're going to be gravitating to and following, even if it's for just 2 episodes with Kathleen, MELANIE LYNSKEY's character. I like the way they've established it, and you know immediately that she's in charge. She's authoritarian. The thing with the doctor there, that is chilling stuff. That is gripping stuff. That is sad stuff. That this is what this has caused people to become in opposition. She's probably spent many appointments with her doctor. Probably, talked to her about her period. Talked to her about maybe she had kids. Who knows? Like, there's probably so much that she revealed in that doctor's office with this man. And here she is in this moment, ready to kill him, and does kill him.
He might have worked at Carbon Health.
Yeah,
he might have worked at Carbon Health.
Yeah, fair enough. Oh, yeah, fair enough. Fair point. But yeah, I mean, there's so much involved here that I thought was just fascinating. And you see the deconstruction of society. This is what happens with this kind of thing. Enemies are friends are now enemies. Connections are now severed because people do things in desperate times to survive. And there are different, and the fact that he's not willing to give up Henry, I think, also kind of underscores your point, Mike, that Henry is the actual hero in this situation, not Kathleen. And so the fact that the guy is willing to die to save Henry, there must be a really strong bond there for some reason in his own mind. So very fascinating stuff here. And we'll see how it all plays out. And we'll see if Kathleen's megalomania, to a degree, will bite her in the ass next episode or next 2 episodes, depending how long this little excursion lasts. And in the game, it's in Pittsburgh, but they said it in Kansas City this time, which is interesting because the Kansas City Chiefs playing the Super Bowl this Sunday, and this episode coming up will drop on Friday night. They announced that today. It will not drop on Sunday night. It's dropping on Friday night, so it doesn't coincide with the Super Bowl. So very smart by them for sure. So you look for that episode this Friday at 9 p.m. ET. All right, well, there we go. Thank you so much for watching this spoiler review of The Last of Us episode 4 here from the Geek Buddies. We appreciate it madly. Shannon, what do you have to tell them?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's at geek_buddies, on Instagram at _geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, where you might get some friendship bonds as well in the way of hilarious jokes, you can follow me on social media, on Twitter at Shannon_McClung, on Instagram at Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you don't want to get some great friendship, you can follow Vogel at MKToon, and you can follow Mr. Rocha at The Rocha Says.
Yeah, I'm in the middle. Sometimes they irritate me, sometimes they're great. I never can. Michael, what else we got to say?
Well, if you want to follow the continuing adventures of Shannon and his best friend Kathleen, then you can keep joining us here on the Geek Buddies. And here's what you can do to make sure that Shannon and Kathleen's friendship bond stays strong. You can hit that like button below. You can subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page and check out all the amazing content he's got there. Leave your comments below. What did you think of this episode? Where do you think things are going? How do you think it stacks up to what we've seen so far? Just give us your Last of Us thoughts below. If you are listening to us on a podcast, go ahead and leave some stars, leave some comments, helps us go up in the rankings. And as always, the best thing that you guys can do is retweet this video, post it to your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
Yeah, you gotta love it there. And big shout out to Carbon Health, who continues to power and sponsor us into 2023. If you've got any healthcare questions, concerns, or needs, you want to head on over to Carbon Health. Go to carbonhealth.com. They got 100 plus locations all over the country, 80 plus locations in California alone. Also, you can download the app to have a doc in your pocket when you need to have those questions answered on the go, especially if you're trying to survive a fungal zombie apocalypse.
Carbon Health's new slogan should be, "We got your back, even if there's a gun to our head." That would be a good slogan for them. They could have that one for free.
Oh, wow. How very kind of you. All right, let's get on out of here.
Shoot. Sorry. Guys, did I tell you that I was arrested for arson once? For burning up the dance floor?
Oh, God. We couldn't even make it through the whole episode. You had to do it. Oh, God.
We're going to go now. Thank you. Take care of yourself. And we'll talk to you next time on a brand new episode of The
Geek
Buddies!